Okay, so I'm a big believer that there's a direct correlation between a strong motherfucker and a big motherfucker, okay? So if you want to really take it up a notch in the gym and gain some muscle mass, you need to strength train, okay? But you can't just dive into strength train. It's a process and it's a progression. And there's a blueprint that you need to follow in order for that to even become a possibility. The reason why you don't dive into strength training is because if you do and you don't have a great foundation, you're going to be riddled with injuries, and injuries really set you back and they just compound. You don't want to have these deficiencies because they just build on themselves and it really messes up the kinetic chain, okay? If you don't know what the kinetic chain is, you need to do your research, because that's probably the reason why you have certain injuries now. Now, that being said, the blueprint that I follow, and I find myself kind of doing this year in and year out, is I'm always going to start the year focusing on range of motion. Mobility is a key focus. I'm going to work out any kind of deficiencies or imbalances that I have, or at least focus on them for a while. So I'm going to do a higher repetition. I'm going to make sure my form's great. Later, I'm going to transition into a more moderate type program where I'm operating from 65% to 75% of my 1 rep max, anywhere from an 8 to 12 rep span. Okay, I'll start at the 8 rep span, in the 8 repetition range, and build throughout the weeks, adding a rep every week to progressively overload. All right. And then it gets to a certain point, once I'm done with that program, I go straight into strength training, okay? And this is when I throttle back the reps that I do, and I really start tacking on weight to the bar. And I'm gonna operate anywhere from 75% to 95% of my prior 1 rep max. When I'm done with that program, I'm then gonna see what my new 1 rep max is to see if I made any improvements, and then I'm gonna go into a weight cutting program, okay? The reason why you don't just dive into a strength training program is because you don't have solid foundations, and you could really make the imbalances and kinetic chain disturbances even worse, okay? And that could be a very problem because they really just compound over time with improper form or whatever, and they just really build on themselves, and it could really be debilitating, and it can really frustrate you and set you back in the gym. So that being said, you really want to approach this cautiously. You want to do your research. You don't want to add too much volume to the point where you're overtraining, because you're just never going to get better. And just take your time with it.